guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Khadija Joelle. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. So today I asked you guys on Instagram if you guys wanted a foundation routine, and 88% said yes. The video today is going to include a little bit of skincare and foundation, concealer, contour, the whole jam. You're going to see my whole foundation routine. So I already did my eyes and my eyebrows off camera. So if you guys want to see this eyeshadow look, just let me know, or a tutorial on my brows. Here, I already washed my face. So now I'm going to moisturize. So I'm going to use a little bit of shea butter. Put it in the palm of my hand. Mine's dark mark correcting cream as my moisturizer. Put it in my hand. Mix the two up and apply it to my face. After I moisturize, I like to spray my skin with my rose water that I had got from Marshall's. Hydrates the skin and get the skin prepped for a foundation. So for a foundation primer, I'm going to use my foundation primer from Lush, and this is called the Magical Morning Primer, and it's a very nice pore filling primer. It definitely fills in the pores. It's kind of a thick consistency. It is white, so when you first apply it, it goes on smooth, but you can feel how it feels in pores, and you can tell by the way your skin looks. Now that we have put on our primer, I'm going to color correct my skin with a Hard Candy color corrector, and this is in the orange shade. I'm going to blend it out with my Beauty Blender sponge. It's important to color correct your skin if you have dark circles or dark marks that can't be covered with your foundation or your concealer. But if you do have a concealer that you like to use to correct dark marks, go ahead and use what you have. But if you need something a little bit more heavy duty that will not show any darkness underneath your foundation, definitely pick up a color corrector in the orange shade for dark skin. I would say if you are more of a medium complexion, pick up a more peach one. Hard Candy also has a peach one, and they also have a green one to cancel out redness. So just look at the options that you have, and you don't have to pay a whole bunch of money for an expensive color corrector from MAC or anything, because you can just go to the drugstore and get you one. Now I'm going to use my Black Opal finishing powder in medium to set my primer because I have oily skin. So I dip the sponge in it like this, and I apply it where I need it. Adding powder before foundation really helps with a lot of multiple things, not just oily skin. So even if you have dry skin, I would say don't use so much powder as me because I have oily skin. But I would say just add it in your T-zone or wherever you want your foundation to look more smooth at. For foundation, I'm going to use the Maybelline Super Stay Foundation in the shade 362 and 370, and I'm going to add them together on the back of my hand and mix it for my perfect foundation shade. Now that they're on the back of my hand, I'm just going to mix them with my foundation brush just by stippling it in, and I'm going to start on my foundation by stippling the foundation into my skin. I like to use brushes, I think, versus a Beauty Blender sponge for foundation, just because I feel like I have more control and it doesn't take as long. With the Beauty Blender, it kind of is short, but depending on the type of foundation, you will have more foundation in the sponge than actually on your face. Will make you lose more product than having it for a longer amount of time. So I kind of go back and forth between a brush and a Beauty Blender sponge. I think this brush came into a kit from like a Marshall's brush kit, and I've just kept it ever since because it's like kind of similar to a hard kabuki brush, but it's shaped differently. It's kind of shaped like a contour brush, and I use this brush for different multiple things, not just foundation. I like to use it sometimes to blend out the excess part of my concealer between where my concealer and my foundation and my contour meets. And I know that probably sounds confusing right now, but I will explain what I mean by that in a second. But as you can tell, this foundation definitely matches me all the way to my chest, and that's what I like about it. It's very full coverage. It has covered all of my dark marks without me having to add too much, even though it kind of was a lot of foundation I put on. But it just depends on what you like for every day, and this is just my preference for when I really want to go out. I'm going to use my sponge to press the foundation in the skin and take off any excess foundation that I don't need, so my skin won't look cakey. I'm going to use my Age Rewind concealer in the color Tan Haler, and what I like to do is take the top of the sponge applicator off and just twist it up and put it on the back of my hand, because if I ever have clients, I wouldn't want to use the sponge applicator on everyone because that's unsanitary. But with this, you can just add it on the back of your hand, on the back of my hand, because it warms up the product. And I use my flat concealer brush, and I'm going to apply this in the areas where I want to highlight the skin. Today I'm using another Maybelline product. So I've used the Maybelline foundation, I used the Maybelline concealer, and now I'm using the Maybelline contour stick. So this is also a part of the Superstay foundation line, but they made the foundations into stick form. So I got the darkest shade they have, which is 380 Espresso. So it twists up like this, and I've had this for probably a month, and I really like it. I'm going to try to go and see if I can get 362 and 370 in the sticks, because they are so creamy and they're so easy to blend that I think it's going to look good as a cream foundation. So I'm going to take the stick and put it in the areas where I usually contour, which is the perimeter around my forehead, on my cheekbones, a little bit on my nose, on both sides, and on my jawline, just a little bit. So now that that is done, I'm going to blend out my concealer first. So I like to take my sponge, dip it in the concealer on the back of my hand if I need more coverage, and start to blend. To use a patting motion instead of like swiping or like really beating the face, as they say, beat the face, because I feel like sometimes when you do that, it actually takes the product away. So you just like to do things softly and take your time. That is the maximum amount of coverage. You should let your concealer under your eye sit for a little minute. Just let it sit and sink into the skin and warm up onto your skin, because once it warms, it wants to stick and stay. So I'm just gonna take my time. As you can tell, I'm just taking my time and I'm just blending it out. Yes, blending it out. This concealer is very easy to blend. It's not hard, it's not sticky, and it's very creamy. So I like creamy foundations, but I don't at the same time if it's really sticky. If it's really sticky, it's kind of harder to blend. So now that that part of our face is blended, I'm going to take the foundation brush that we was using at first, and I'm going to blend out the cream contour. So I'm going to start on my nose by turning the brush to the side and blending up and down the bridge of my nose on both sides, and I like to make sure I'm taking the color up into the brow so the contour from the nose just seamlessly goes in with a blend. I want to start on my forehead and blend that cream contour out. This is for everybody who has a big 5 head like me and you do not want your 5 head to be prominent, but you need to blend it out. And as you can tell, it blended out super smooth with the concealer. So all of these Maybelline products really work good together. They work really well together. So I'm just blending everything, and you can still see the foundation, you can still see the contour shade, and you can still see the highlight. And that's what I love about these products that Maybelline came out with recently for deeper, darker skin, because they got it on point. Like, they really did. I'm going to add a little bit more of tan haler underneath my eye. I actually have another one of these shades in a darker shade that I like to use for if I don't want to be too beat, but I want to look beat at the same time. I use a different one for that. So now that that is under my eye, I'm going to take the same sponge and I'm going to just press this into the under eye, because yesterday I realized last night I went to go hang out with some of my girlfriends and the concealer looked good, but it didn't look as good as when I first was using it because of the applicator that's on top of it. So I was trying to figure out how to get that still full coverage look that I like with this concealer, and I realized I think I just had to add a little bit more. Even though I said you have to let it sink in, for me, under my eyes, I still have to add a little bit more to have that full coverage that I would like to see underneath my eyes. So now that I've added the concealer, I've added the cream contour, we have put the foundation on, we added a little bit more for some more coverage. I'm going to go under my eye with the sponge just to blend out any creases. And now I'm going to use that same Black Opal foundation powder in medium, and I'm going to set my under eye in all the places that I added the highlighting concealer. So I'm going to start off with using a brush. So I put the powder in the top of the cap, dust the excess off, and just begin to set. I like to go on the sides of the nose and underneath the eye to really catch all of that concealer and set it really nice. I like to do this before I actually like to go in and bake a little bit. Go underneath that contour to make the cheekbones look chiseled with the powder. I will say that Black Opal has other finishing powders, not just this shade that's loose, that you can use if you're a lighter skin complexion than me to get this same look. Just get a different shade if you're a little bit lighter, but anybody that's my shade or maybe 1 or 2 shades underneath me, you can use this powder and it'll work just fine for you. Like I said, just tap off the excess before you add it to the face. Man, I like this powder because it's in between being yellow and being neutral at the same time. And I love that when it comes to finishing powders, because I do not like using anything that is too yellow, because it looks kind of crazy on me, because I don't have a whole bunch of yellow in my skin. I have a little bit, but it's not as much as it usually is when it becomes actually really fall time, because right now we're in the midst of that in between August stage, about to be September. So I like to add the powder on the bridge of my nose and squeeze it on both sides to put the powder directly in the middle of my nose and let it sit for my contour. So I like to make sure I go back in and make sure all the shine is put away and the skin still looks really pretty and skin-like. My sponge, put a little bit of powder on the sponge and go right directly under the eye, just right there. Now I'm going to bronze up my skin, so I'm going to use these two shades from my Ben Not palette, and I'm going to bronze up my skin. So I'm going to use this really nice powder brush, and I'm just going to tap the powder over my cream contour. I like to use tapping motions instead of swiping, so you can control how much product you add to your face. And that's important when it comes to bronzing or even adding any type of powder, is using a tapping motion, just like we was using a tapping motion with our cream concealer and with our with our concealer and with our cream contour. It's tapping motions. So I'm going to take the brush and pinch it. I already added the powder, and go on the sides of my nose to set that cream concealer that was there. So as you can tell, the skin looks very still dewy, still fresh, and it doesn't look too much. So now I'm going to take that same brush we used for powder and brush off the sides of my nose and underneath my eye. So I like to go under there, go under my eye, and kind of blend it out towards where the bronzer is so it can blend in smoothly. I like to do the same thing around the highlight on my forehead. Brush out the excess on the nose and on the side of the nose, so everything can look really seamless. Champagne Splits, and this one is in the shade Prosecco Pop and Pamplemousse. So I'm going to use Pamplemousse, and I think I'm going to use Prosecco Pop as a highlighter today. I'm going to use the same brush that we use underneath the eye to set the powder to add the blush, because I love this angle. Now, as you can see, it's just a really pretty pink blush, and it has a little bit of shimmer to it already. So I really love this blush. It goes really nice with the eyes, and pink blushes look really nice on dark skin as well. I'm a blush girl. That's something that y'all definitely gonna have to get used to over here on this channel. I can put blush on for days and just keep walking like it's nothing. That's just what I take my highlighter brush and go into Prosecco Pop and start to add the highlight on my cheekbones. As you can tell, this highlighter is super pigmented, but I think because the skin was moisturized as much as it was underneath the foundation, the highlighter is able to lay the way it's supposed to. Okay, that's beautiful. I'm gonna come back after I do my lips and do something with my hair for the finished look. Hey guys, thank you for tuning in into this video. Thank you for watching the entire thing. I hope that you learned some new foundation hacks for your foundation routine for every day, and let me know in the comments down below if you guys want to see this eyeshadow look or a brow tutorial. Everything on my face was Drugstore except for my blush and my highlighter, but I think I'm going to try to find a blush duo from the Drugstore so you can use something that is similar to this. And I hope you guys learned everything. This was super fun, so I'm going to check out you guys next time. Bye.